Today's question can be politically correct, or maybe it's politically incorrect. And here's the question: is it important to take care of our planet? Well, is it important that we take care of the planet? Yes, it absolutely is. But I want to talk to you today about caring for the planet with balance. Now, here, listen to this word. If you're an eco-warrior, you might be going, and all of your bells and whistles are going off, okay? Or maybe you're somebody that says the earth is fine, forget about it. You know, there really is a middle of the road. Genesis 1:26, God tells us very specifically that we as mankind have a responsibility to the earth and the animals on the earth. Genesis 1:26, God said this, let us make man in our image and in our likeness. Now listen to these words. And let man rule over the fish of the sea, the fowl of the air, and the livestock, over all the earth, and over all the creatures that move along the earth. So God is saying that I've put man in a place of having authority and dominion over the planet. So much so that in Genesis 2:15, he said, then God took the man and put him in a garden of Eden. And he said he was there to tend it and to keep it or protect it. So yes, we absolutely have a responsibility from God and before God to not do things intentionally to harm this planet. But there's an imbalance that's occurred in our culture today. It's found in Romans chapter 1. Let me read it to you. Romans 1:18 says this, that the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and the wickedness of men who suppress the truth by their wickedness. Since what may be known about God, listen to these words, is plain to them. Who's them? Those who don't walk with God, those who don't acknowledge God, those that deny his existence. What may be known about God is plain to them because God has made it plain to them. What's that mean? God has made his existence plain to every human being on the earth. How did he do it? Verse 20 tells you. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made or through creation, so that men are without excuse. For although they knew God, or they saw that this creation occurred, they neither glorified him as God nor gave thanks to him, but their thinking became futile and their foolish hearts became darkened. Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools. Now here's why. They exchanged, listen to these words in verse 23. They exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images made to look like mortal men and birds, animals, and reptiles. Therefore, God gave them over to their own sinful desires, to these deep sinful desires of their heart, to sexual impurity, even degrading their bodies with one another. Now, verse 25 really shows you the imbalance. This is a choice that people make. And by the way, they're making it today. They exchanged the truth of God for a lie. And they worshiped and served the created things rather than worshiping and serving the Creator, who is forever to be praised. Now, what's God saying? He's saying it gets out of balance when human beings worship what God created instead of God. If you've ever looked at the imbalance of this issue in our culture today, it's that human beings deny the existence of a God when they look at a world that has such intricacy, the human body with such intricacy. That you say, well, do you believe that God created everything? I think you have to be, I think it takes amazing faith to believe all this happened and nobody did it. Now, you maybe don't have kids, but I can promise you this. If you have kids, you go into a room and somebody broke something and nobody broke it. Who broke this? Nobody. That's paramount to what people think today. All this happened, all this intricacy happened, and nobody did it. It's like driving into a neighborhood and saying, this neighborhood evolved into this. Nobody built it. There was no design. That's insanity. In fact, I would tell you it takes a ton of faith to believe that all this happened and nobody did it. But in the resulting outcome, when you remove God from the equation, is that you worship that which God made. Let me give you an example. We abort babies that are made in the image of God and criminalize destroying a bald eagle's egg. Do you know there's something called the Bald Eagle Protection Act? And if you destroy an eagle's egg, and by the way, you shouldn't. If you do so and you get caught, it's a $5,000 fine and up to 1 year in prison. And yet, in the last 105 days, we have aborted in the world over 12 million children. Now, if you really want to look at the crazy in the world today and the imbalance, is that in worshiping the creation rather than the creator, is that people elevate the environment above God. They elevate a recycling above God. Recycling isn't God. And by the way, just so you know, God said eventually the whole earth is going to dissolve. It's going to be wiped away. Do you know the only thing eternal on the earth today is not the birdies and the fishies? Do you know that it's not the water and the trees? The only thing eternal is that which is made in the image of God, and that's people. So here's your takeaway. Number one, we absolutely are responsible to care for our planet. We should do everything as much as we can to be responsible not to injure and damage the planet. But secondly, it's this. We must not worship the creation more than the creator. So how do I know if I'm doing that? When you're more worried about what happens to a straw than a baby, that's nuts. Let me say that politely. I'm sorry, I said that kind of harshly. That's nuts. You're more worried about what happens with a straw than you care about a child being aborted. Do you see how crazy that is? You can't make up that kind of crazy. In fact, you need help to be that kind of crazy. So here's the third thing is simply this. Man, not animals, or nature, are made in the image of God and are not equal in God's sight to his creation. Does that mean they're not important? No, everything's created by God should be given great value. It should be cared for. God said you tend it and you keep it. Hey, anything we can do to reduce the carbon output and do it in a way that doesn't destroy human beings. Look, there are people that truly believe today the answer is to wipe out people, is to kill and abort children. Or if you go to China, a one-child policy. Because we're overpopulated. The problem on planet Earth are people. No, Earth was made for people the way a nursery was made for a baby. We are not an afterthought. And you remember this about God. He didn't make an earth so fragile as not to be able to contend with and deal with the human life he would put upon it. God's not stupid. He made an earth that could actually support human life. And it's not nearly as fragile as the extremes of this issue say that it is. And by the way, let me leave you with this thought. Jesus said this about people in political influence of his day. He said that those that empower they'll exercise that power upon the small and the weak. And while they do it, they'll call themselves your benefactor. Now, I'm just going to be very plain with you. I have a great deal of issue with people who use issues to gain political power and control over other people's lives, whatever those issues may be. And so you want to be wise as a Christian. You want to be wise enough to realize that not everybody's using an issue for the real issue's sake. They're using the issue as a springboard to have dominion over people. Then the final thing I'll tell you is this. God gave you dominion over the earth, but he never gave us dominion over people. We are not meant to dominate people. We're meant to serve one another, to value people above everything on the planet, and then to tend and to keep the earth as well. Hey, new content's going to be coming out in the You Ask For It series every Tuesday and every Friday. So please like and share and subscribe to this channel. And so you don't miss new content, make sure to ring the bell and it'll let you know when new content's coming, because we really want to help you address the real life issues that you ask for. So God bless you. Look forward to our next time together.